Hey everybody, welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, presented by the Triple S League. Check us out on YouTube for game guides, reviews, music videos, comedy videos, and all kinds of other fun gaming content. My name is Asheninity, and I'm here as always with Cybsidian.
Hello. We have a packed episode today. Oh my goodness, the news. And we're not even going to get to like the indie stuff. This is just all headliner stuff. So as promised, this week we are going to cover our Cyberpunk leaks. We were really tempted to put this off for another week just because of the insanity that is currently going on in the video game world.
Of course, when we're planning to talk about Cyberpunk leaks, all of the news happens.
Yeah.
We might not get to everything, but we will have something after we get through these first couple of stories. We will have some juicy Cyberpunk info for you. So, Half-Life 3 is probably the most popular game ever that never actually existed. It's come as close to being released as it ever will be this past week. We've got some leaked info that has come out about what would have been if the game had ever been made. What do we have? What actually got released here, Cyb?
So, well, the biggest thing is that the head writer decided that it's never coming out, so time to let it go. And this is, strangely enough, this is almost exactly 10 years ago that Half-Life 2 came out, so we're pretty sure that this is a 10-year NDA that has now passed, and he's now leaking stuff in kind of a subtle way, because he renamed all the names and he flipped all the sexes of all the people in the thing. This is Mark Laidlaw, by the way. Mark Laidlaw, one of the head writers for the series, put all this stuff out. He kind of laid out the story. Then what happened on top of that is a bunch of leaks of the mapping that had been done also came out.
So I didn't realize that Half-Life 3 was at that advanced of a stage of development, actually. You're saying they had a story, they had maps laid out.
They had the story laid out from like shortly after number 1.
That makes sense, that they would have the story mapped out. I kind of figured they probably had that, but I didn't think they had even gotten to the point of sketching out maps and things.
As soon as Half-Life 2 came out, they started working on prototypes for the next game, and they started working on maps and new multiplayer stuff. So we're seeing a sizable amount of where the game was at when they essentially kind of lost the vision for it. It's a decent ending to the game. I think now that people look at it and they go, oh, okay, maybe Valve will actually be tempted to go back to it, because they're like, oh, people are happy with that ending. Let's just make the game and have it end that way.
Right.
So they might, and this could all be the biggest publicity stunt that Valve has ever done. They could have worked with all these people to drop all these leaks, and then suddenly they've announced Half-Life 3. That could be a thing. This could all be a ploy, but I really doubt it, because these are people who have left Valve and have left Valve under not necessarily happy circumstances. So unless it's all this gigantic ploy, I think this is the end of the Half-Life saga. I think at some point in the future, it may get rebooted. There's certainly a possibility with that. If somebody buys the IP or, strikes a deal to license it, whatever, it could happen. But for the most part, I think this is where the story ends for Half-Life. And at least it came from Mark Laidlaw, and at least he did it in a respectful, as much of a respectful way as he possibly could have, considering what kind of legal action could be thrown against him if he had come straight out and said, yeah, I'm pissed off at the companies. This is the end of the story. Take this, run with it. Haha. Probably wouldn't have gone over very well.
No, he might not have much of a career left after that. By the way, podcast today brought to you by MMOGamerStore.com, your source for alpha and beta keys for the newest upcoming games. Check them out, MMOGamerStore.com. If you can't get into that closed beta or that alpha that you're interested in, they might have a key for you at MMOGamerStore.com. You never know. So, Sega's come under fire for releasing Sonic Mania for PC with some hefty DRM that they didn't tell anybody about and didn't put a notice of on when you download the game. And I'm actually just looking at a notice up on Steam right now. In regards to DRM, like you, we've noticed an error in the Steam store not mentioning the DRM for Sonic Mania. We're fixing that now. Yeah, just an error, just a slight oversight.
Yeah, just a slight error. A little bit more on that. It also wasn't in the terms of service, which it should have been. Yeah, legally, it would have been required to be in there. So this is a big mess up, big screw up. Plus, this is de novo, which if a game has de novo, I don't even look at it. As soon as I know it's got de novo, I'm like, sorry, won't be playing this anytime soon. And that's because de novo is a brute DRM type tool. It embeds itself pretty much permanently into your computer. You have to do a full wipe if you want to get rid of it. It constantly snitches data. And in a lot of cases, it snitches data. There's some allegations that it snitches data about things that it should not have a legal right to snitch data about. And this is really disappointing for Sonic. This is really frustrating for people who threw it on their computer for their niece or nephew or child. Or this is really going to make a lot of people really upset. And again, when you sneak in additional third-party programs without notifying the buyer, that is illegal in a lot of countries. There have been successful lawsuits and successful class action lawsuits against companies who have done this behavior before. So this is hugely disappointing from Sega. This is really shocking and has made a lot of people really, really upset. And the biggest thing that's happened from this is that people are actively trying to break the DRM and then to spread it around in spite of Sega.
Yeah, which we don't condone. We don't approve of that. But really, when are these companies going to realize that DRM just doesn't pay to have it? Yeah, and Steam has its own anti-piracy things. It has ways of checking that. I don't know. I don't see why this was necessary.
No, I think it was a horrendous move. A lot of bad choices today.
So this is gonna cost them a lot more money in the long term, or even in the short term, than that those few copies that might have gotten stolen by people.
And again, for me personally, I'm going to avoid Sega games as much as I can.
Well, that's in the future,
because I do not want this kind of aggressive DRM tool on my computer ever. Period. Yeah, I would rather at this point get a console and play it on a console. There is no way I'm letting de novo touch my baby. So, no, bad idea.
And speaking of bad business decisions, good lord. At E3 this year, we saw Bethesda announce the return of paid mods in a new form. They've done this song and dance before, but now they've got this what's it called? The Community Creation Club or something?
Yeah, the Creation Club. And basically, the skinny on it is that, and I liked this, I really need to preface this because we have a lot of fans that come from the modding community of both Skyrim and Fallout 4. I am a huge fan of both of those things. I still have Fallout 4 installed on my computer. I still have Skyrim installed on my computer. I have over 3,000 hours on those games. I have the biggest section of my hard drive is dedicated to mods for both of those games. It's ridiculous. I am a crazy modder. Part of me really liked the idea of Bethesda coming out and saying, we're going to support modders better. We're going to support modders by helping mods work better and doing a lot of the more difficult tech side of the programming, so that you don't have mods, conflicting with each other, crashing with each other, that kind of stuff. For me, that was like oh my goodness, this is amazing. But then they were like, but we're going to charge for it. And I was like, oh, why would you do that? Why? After you tried the first time? Why? They seem to be very willing to do some shady stuff. Now, there's nothing big yet. It's just people have noticed that there's some mods from Nexus that have strangely been just kind of rebuilt from the ground up, updated it on this new thing, and then pushed out and said, here's the mod, and here's, it costs you $5 to use it. Bad move. There's lots of big mods on the Nexus, and, I really love the summertime and the tropical Skyrim mod as well. And those work. And
well, that's just
they
it.
work well to change the experience.
This is where Bethesda has really been forward thinking, is that they allow modding. They actually encourage and support modding, at least in the sense of like, yes, we encourage you to do that. You know, if it's not our fault if you break the game, but you know, go for it. But here's my question: is what is Bethesda's motivation for creating this creation club, like and doing the paid mods?
It's not the paid mods was never the brainchild of anybody strictly at Bethesda, so to speak. It's more the brainchild of people at ZeniMax.
Okay.
It's the people at ZeniMax who want to squeeze as much blood as they can from any stone. And that's because that's their job. Their job is to make sure that products sell and move, numbers, and that they get the most bang out of their buck. If they can make people buy the game 3 times and still retain a fandom, then they'll make people buy the game 3 times.
This doesn't make sense on the face of it, though, because why is it going to appeal to me that, I can buy this game and have fun playing it, and then I can buy mods for it, as opposed to I can buy this game, and then when I'm done playing it, I can mod the crap out of it for free and get way more out of it. That's more appealing to me. Like, having to spend more money on a game, I don't see how that would appeal to anybody.
I don't have a problem tipping people for the mods.
Yes, I mean, voluntarily supporting the modders who, for their work. Absolutely. Go nuts. And in fact, I encourage everybody to do that. If there's modders whose work you really appreciate, yeah, send them a buck or two to express your appreciation. I mean,
and we're not saying that because we've made mods for
no, and we definitely yeah. I mean, our mod. I mean, please, by all means, check out our mods. We're not asking for donations for our mods. On the other hand, if you appreciate this podcast, I mean, we welcome you to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/the SSS But we're really coming into an age where directly supporting content creators you appreciate is a very important thing.
It's the way to go. It's the way to go of the future, because you can never trust corporations to assist you in that regard.
Yeah.
And I have to be careful. I have to be really careful what I say, because the new AIs are listening and watching to every word that we say.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
you would, and it's funny actually. I kind of wanted to make a video highlighting the things on our channel that had gotten demonetized by the new AI, just because it was so funny. In retrospect, it was funny. At the
ridiculous
time,
and silly.
At the time, I was ravenously furious. So it wouldn't have been a comical video. It would have been me lashing out at YouTube. But anyway, a video I released just a few days ago talking about the new. Never mind. I won't get into that. At first I was angry, but now it makes me laugh, the things that get demonetized. It's like, oh, here we go again. Like, really?
It's
that
ridiculous.
Like, come on. And whenever I get that email saying, congratulations, your video is approved for all advertisers. Really? You had to have your entire team of laboratory scientists analyze it to figure that out, did you? Anyway, paid mods, I can't see myself paying for a mod. Especially since it feels like I'm paying Bethesda or ZeniMax or whomever you want to say where the money goes. It feels like I'm paying this company for the work that Joe Modder did. And I know they get a cut of that, but I don't know what the revenue split is, but it just feels like
it's not as high as it should be.
It feels like the company is profiting off of somebody else's work, and that just, I don't know, to me it kind of defeats the spirit of modding. Rubs me the wrong way. I can't quite put it into words completely.
All right, so for our final segment, we're gonna talk our Cyberpunk leaks. This is
Cyberpunk.
This is what everybody's tuning in for. This is what everybody came for. So here's the skinny. First of all, I want to make this absolutely 100% clear. I have checked and double checked. I have gone back and forth and tried to find every possible avenue to confirm that this was not the stolen information from CD Projekt Red. This was not the stolen hijacked stuff that they attempted to hold for ransom. This may be in there, but we've been able to confirm that's not where it actually comes from. So where it actually comes from, we can't say, because then that person might lose a job. So
that's not ominous at all.
yeah, no, not ominous at all. We're going to back this up with going back to what Mike Pondsmith said in the most recent interview that he did about a month and a half ago. So looking at what we have now and comparing it to what he suggested in a few spots, which we'll link to down below. He basically said that they're handling the classes with a lot of subtlety. That statement, to me, really makes me believe this is where it's going. So first, the smaller news. The smaller news is that the seasonal system that they used for The Witcher has been used to create and generate maps on a massive scale for the actual game of Cyberpunk, and that they've used the same system where it kind of changes from season to season. They've used that to be able to incorporate the destructible environments that they're creating. So far, what we have confirmed, and these are, do not take these names or these words verbatim. I have tweaked them a little bit so that we don't kind of give a bread trail for people to find out who may have given us this information. So what we're going to see as far as the city goes is we're going to see a couple of different types. We're going to see a couple of different areas in the city that you're going to be able to see and spend time around.
So what types of terrains and environments are we going to see? I mean, in the trailer, in the teaser, we saw, obviously, a futuristic city.
With skyscrapers.
Yeah,
and
which is, we kind of expect from a Cyberpunk.
Yeah, we'll definitely see that skyscraper area. Whether or not you can just walk into any skyscraper and just start exploring, going through floor by floor, I doubt it, but that's not what this leak is about. So what the leak is we're going to have skyscraper areas of a couple different kinds. We're going to have a lot of professional areas with a strip mall or businesses all around the bottom that you can kind of walk in. We're going to see slums, residential, some damaged ruins, and radioactive areas, or what you might call the high-risk zones, are going to be in there. That's what we've been told. Now, this is reasonably confirmable by just looking at it and saying, well, all these areas are going to be in there. The residential areas, this doesn't mean the suburbs. This means like residential tower housing kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The size of the land mass is rumored currently to be at 4 times the size of Witcher and all of the DLCs put together.
Wow.
So 4 times the size is massive, and it also explains why they have been doing a ton of hiring in environmental and like hiring people to make environments and construct buildings and that kind of stuff.
Now, do we know, is it all going to be city?
In the actual game, in the actual lore, most of what you encounter is city. However, there are places that you go to that's not city, aka the radioactive or the high-risk zones, the ruinous areas outside of the city or on the city limits, like industrial zones, that kind of stuff. That's in the game. As far as the lore goes and as far as the background goes, I mean, they have these classes that are nomadic in nature. So clearly they're not nomads running around from one side of the city to the other. They're probably transitioning from areas just outside of the city, not necessarily Mad Max style, but if you look at the artwork, it kind of leans in that direction. Okay. So, like I said, this is the small stuff first. This is confirming that we have a lot of these different areas and that they're currently using the tech that they have developed in the previous Witcher series. Instead of generating weather and seasonal stuff, they're using that to generate, if you go in and you have a conflict in a certain area and it gets heavily damaged, that might be a thing, or you might have, come back to it and, robots are rebuilding everything. And then after you come back after a little while, it's all more or less back to normal or changed subtly.
So you're talking about environmental changes based on events in the game, driven by like player decisions, that kind of thing?
Yeah, but we have been expecting this for honestly quite a while.
Right, okay.
Like I said, small stuff. So now let's get to the big stuff, which is the class leak.
Classes, okay.
Mike Pondsmith confirmed that all the classes would be in the game. And a lot of people are really excited for this.
That would be all of the classes from the
original pen and paper games.
The original pen and paper games. Okay.
This is big because we don't really have a lot of games that are built around classes anymore. In fact, multi-classing is quite the thing. What we've got is that they're basically building kind of a web system for leveling and specializing into the classes. And so that you will have a class route that you can go, and you can maybe do some light multi-classing, but once you go down the class tree, you're going to be kind of locked into that unless you reset your character. So a lot of people might be, upset by this, go, whoa, I wanted a class system. And the argument against this is that you don't want to have somebody go, 60 hours, 70 hours into the game and realize that they really hate their class. And then in order to change their class, they have to, re-roll and play through all of that story content again.
So you're saying that we will have the option to re-roll our character at any point?
This is at this point, which I cannot stress this enough. This stuff can change, but it seems to be that this is kind of more or less where they're heading. And when Mike Pondsmith talked about it, and he said that there's a lot of subtlety in how you play the class, this, I think, is what he was kind of referring to, is that you have the ability to, move around in your class and really spec it out, really, make that class feel your own. A little bit of multi-classing with kind of locking you into a chosen path is the way to go. And then if you really don't like it, you can kind of reset your story and go at it from another way. They want to open up the possibility of you being able to switch your class without necessarily losing a ton of content that you have, and that we probably won't see a Dragon Age Origins type story where the first half of the game is like catered directly to your class and your background story that you pick. What we'll probably see is a class system in which you create your character, and then you may be able to pick from a handful of starting types or starting stories, but those will eventually funnel you into a more or less main storyline that has several branching storylines where you do class-related specific quests. And that if you reboot your class, you might be able to open up new pathways, but then if by doing that, you may end up closing other pathways to you. So basically their intention is to create a game in which you don't necessarily get stuck playing a solo, but at the same time switching to a rocker boy is going to be, that's a big decision to make. Because this game is hugely open world. Much more open world than I believe we've seen The Witcher ever be. So I would assume that they want to make it so that it's a little bit more accessible at a very high cost. They don't want to make it so that you're like, oh, I'm going to do this mission, but it's the easiest way to do this mission is if I switch to, this other class and play this other class and just do it with this other class. No, I think they want to make those decisions very, very difficult. And then also you might never switch your class and you may, redo the game from the beginning as playing another class. That allows you to have the best of both worlds. And I think that's what they're doing here if our information is correct.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. And that's really, really good, especially if you're in an unfamiliar type of game like this setting.
Yeah, a lot of people have never played a game anywhere close to this. The fact that there is essentially a journalist class, a celebrity rocker boy class, and, then there's the more typical solo class.
Not your typical D&D classes, yeah.
Not your typical RPG classes. So they want to make it so that you don't have a bad experience early on. You'll do the character customization because we've gotten pretty much a guarantee that there's going to be a huge character creation system in it, that you're not going to be stuck playing Gerald for the entirety of the series. You're going to be able to make male, female, pick your hair, do all kinds of crazy stuff. That's pretty much guaranteed to be in there. I think what we'll have is we'll kind of have the story where you start out as just this no-name character. You'll maybe be able to pick a background, and then the story will take you on, and you'll kind of choose your direction as you play. And I think that's the best move because a lot of people are very unfamiliar with this type of game. Asking somebody to make a decision on their entire play style for the rest of the game to lock them into that's kind of, you're walking into dangerous territory if you do that.
Yeah, so are you saying there might be a kind of a system that actually defines your class for you based on how you actually play the game?
No, I think from what the leak says and from what I personally feel, I think that they're going to allow you to experiment a little bit. They're going to let you kind of make choices, but then once you make choices, you're going to be locked in with the possibility of making a a switch out at some point if you are really unhappy with your general choice. I think that's really where they're going to aim with this, and the information that we have seems to coincide with what Mike has suggested.
Okay.
What we'll do is, if you have questions on the Cyberpunk thing, and if you have comments, or if you're able to dig up any kind of information that I may have missed, please drop it in the comments. I want to give a shout out to the Mad Queen. She is doing a lot of videos specifically on Cyberpunk 2077, and we're having some chats back and forth. So that's not where the leak came from, but I want to give a shout out to her because she's talked in depth about this. If you want to check out her as a great source, also Young Yea is a great source with as far as it comes to this kind of stuff too, because he's been around a really long time. He doesn't know I'm doing this. I don't think he even knows about us, but he's been around a long time, and he's kind of got a sense for where the winds are going, so to speak.
Okay, right on. And with that, we bring this edition of the Augmented Reality Podcast to a close, but we're very much looking forward to Cyberpunk 2077. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, definitely like and sub to stay tuned for all of our upcoming updates, and of course, lots of content when the game actually releases next year. But for now, this has been the Augmented Reality Podcast. We are the Triple S League. Thank you so much for watching. Check out our sponsor, MMOGamerStore.com, and we will talk to you next week.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League. If you appreciate this weekly content, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. Patrons get exclusive access to podcast outtake videos, downloadable music, an RSS feed of our podcast, and more. See patreon.com/the Triple S League for details. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.